Welcome inside Gillette Stadium, everybody. My name is Mike Petraglia, joined as always by Patriots expert columnist for WEEI.com, Christopher Price. Chris, the Patriots look to improve to 3-0, and I think everybody and their brother expects them to do so at home against a rebuilding but still young and talented Jacksonville Jaguars team. Gus Bradley, former defensive coordinator with the Seattle Seahawks, comes into town, really bringing a team that is rebuilding around a lot of young players, namely Blake Bortles.
Yeah, there is a lot of really good young talent on that roster. You know, when you look up and down, offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball, they haven't gotten Julius Thomas yet, and I think he's going to bring something to that offense, a bit of a dynamic that they've been missing over the years. But quite frankly, this is a roster that, while does offer some interesting parts, doesn't stack up 1-53 with the Patriots as far as I'm concerned.
Really doesn't, but you have to give Blake Bortles a lot of credit. Last week, the Jaguars built up a 20-3 lead. Miami came back, tied it 20-20, and then as Bill Belichick said in his conference call earlier in the week, that he came through in the clutch when the team needed him, drove the team down for the game-winning field goal, and the Jaguars held on for a 23-20 upset over the Dolphins, evening their record at 1-1. You know, I think we talked about it on the podcast. Almost everything has to go right for the Patriots not to win this game. Yeah,
I think if they were down in Jacksonville and there was a driving rainstorm and there were certain other elements that might make it more of a difficult contest for New England, look, they're here. It's Sunday at 1. It's supposed to be beautiful weather. There's no reason to think that the Patriots are not going to win this thing by at least 2 touchdowns. Again, that's no disrespect intended to Blake Bortles, Denard Robinson, TJ Yeldon, the rest of that roster. They do an awful lot of good things, but right now they're just not anywhere near where the Patriots are at this point in the season.
A lot of talk today about Rob Gronkowski. You were the one who got it all started with Bill Belichick, asking Bill Belichick, what kind of leader is Rob Gronkowski? We always see on the highlights on TV, obviously, is the fun-loving Gronk, all of the TMZ videos and the highlights over the last couple of years. But Bill Belichick said something to you that I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, his leadership skills really are underrated. That was the phrase that Belichick used when talking about Gronkowski. Look, we all know about the Gronkowski caricature, the caricature, the cartoonness, the kind of the over the top, portrayal, and he feeds into that, quite frankly, a lot, and really it's made him an awful lot of money over the years. But at the same time, that kind of sells the rest of him short. Not only his football leadership skills, but his football IQ. Bill talked about him not only knowing the tight end position, but because they ask him to do so many different things, not just line up, flush on a tackle. They split him out. They split him out wide. They put him in the slot. They put him in the backfield. He has to know a lot of different things. He has to know a lot of different roles. I think he's done a very good job knowing that. Again, we all know about the off-field Gronk, the TMZ Gronk, the whole bit, the party guy. But the party bus, and that's great. But at the same time, that tends to overshadow some of the other things he does as a football player.
The thing I found interesting was Bill Belichick related to us, thanks in part to a question asked by Mike Reese, that there was a time in the very first preseason game, and I went back and looked it up, 2010 against the Saints, where Gronk just lined up in what Belichick told us today was the 1580 package, meaning full protection, 2 tight ends. And he said to Bill O'Brien, the offensive coordinator at the time, we got to get this guy involved in the offense. We got to get him downfield catching passes. I thought that was interesting.
And then you remember that week 3 game of the preseason against the Rams when we all kind of saw what sort of offensive force Gronkowski could be, where he dragged James Laurinaitis across the goal line for, I believe it was his first touchdown of the preseason. It was interesting. It's interesting to look back now and see Gronk as a rookie in 2010 and see how far he's come. Again, not just from the physical. We all know about what he does physically in the sight of him bearing down on some sort of unsuspecting defensive back or linebacker. It's become commonplace here over the years when he's been healthy. But again, I think that kind of tends to overshadow what he brings to the field from an IQ perspective, from a versatility perspective. It's interesting to see how far he's come and hearing Bill talk about him in 2010 as opposed to where he is now.
All right, let's talk about Tom Brady because he was the other big topic of conversation inside the locker room. That's because he's got a milestone, and it's appropriate that he could reach the milestone in the same month that David Ortiz hit home run number 500. Tom Brady could pass his 400th career touchdown pass this weekend against Jacksonville. Actually, it'd be a shock if he didn't. And I think what you brought up and are bringing up on WEEI.com is pretty fascinating because Tom Brady is about to enter some company that is not just 500 or 600 home runs in baseball, but maybe 700 home runs.
Yeah, you look at the three guys now who have 400-plus touchdown passes. It's Manning, it's Favre, and it's Dan Marino.
Right.
And that's pretty exclusive company. But I think we're almost kind of selling this thing short because obviously the offseason, it was all about Deflategate. It was all about the loss of Rivas, Gronkowski, whatever. But I think when you look at the numbers that he's been able to produce, and I think you were the one who asked the question, really the efficiency, not just the numbers. The touchdown numbers are one thing, but the touchdown to interception ratio over the course of his career is really quite extraordinary. So I think we're kind of losing sight of how important this 400 plateau is, and he's about to be joined also, quite frankly, by Drew Brees, and there's some other guys who are behind him who may be able to hit the mark in the next few years. But I think really the closest thing to it in terms of milestones, in terms of sports milestones, probably the 700 home run mark. There's only a handful of guys who've been able to hit that so far, and I'm fascinated to see if someone else is going to be able to join them. There's only a handful of guys who've been able to hit 400.
I asked Tom Brady about it, and he said, in great classic Tom Brady form, he said, I've been on a great team with great teammates, and he said he called this team the greatest team organization in sports, and that was in his opinion, and certainly very few people over the last 15 years could argue with that. I want to bring up something else on Tom Brady. Do you think he's being slighted by the NFL? Last week, he throws for 100 more yards passing than Ben Roethlisberger, the AFC Offensive Player of the Week, yet he gets overlooked. Again, week one, he was sharp as a razor in the win over the Steelers. He has 7 touchdown passes, Chris, no interceptions. That's a better start than what he had in 2007 when obviously went on to win the MVP.
It's a very small sample size, but I agree with you. I think that, we could sit here and debate whether or not the NFL is, trying to stick it to the Patriots here by not naming them, the FedEx Player of the Week. It's all a bunch of, at this point, I think, hooey, window dressing, malarkey, whatever you want to say. Right. I think that, quite frankly, it's nice to have that, but, this is one area where I kind of tend to put some stock in the cliches that we hear from those guys. Look, it doesn't matter. They got the win. He passed for more than 400 yards. He's going up against Jacksonville this week. They have a depleted secondary. I think that it would have been nice to have that award, but how many of those does he have? 14, 15, 16? Look, again, I think at the end of the day, it's all just nonsense.
I would agree with you very much, Christopher. All that matters is what the Patriots do on Sunday, and they will get their chance at 1 o'clock here inside Gillette Stadium to improve to 3-0. We'll have team coverage, Ryan Hannibal, Christopher Price, and yours truly, all on scene for WEEI.com as always. Inside Gillette Stadium, he is Christopher Price. I'm Mike Petraglia, WEEI.com.